Hello and welcome to today's edition of the Daf Yomi, Tate Bekhorot Daf 28 Amd A. So let's dive straight in. And the other ones, either sages in the school of Rav, why don't they derive the halacha that a firstborn is eaten for 2 days and 1 night from that verse? The Gemara answers, if it were derived from there, it would be possible to say that the verse is comparing the halacha of the firstborn to the breast and the thigh of a thanks offering, which are eaten only for 1 day and night. The Gemara asks, and the other one, Rav Yehuda citing Rav, how does he respond to this? The verse states, and their flesh shall be yours, as the breast of waving, and as the right thigh shall be yours in Numbers 18:18. The verse adds another mention of a form of the term being in the second phrase, it shall be yours, to teach that the priest has an additional day to eat a firstborn animal, i.e. that it should be compared to the breast and thigh of a peace offering, not to that of a thanks offering. The Gemara asks, and the other ones, the sages from the school of Rav, how do they respond to this claim? The Gemara answers, with regard to the inference from there, it's possible to say that the phrase "it shall be yours" teaches with regard to a blemished firstborn that the owner must give it to the priest. This derivation is necessary as we have not found this halacha that a blemished firstborn is given to a priest stated explicitly anywhere in the entire Torah. The Gemara asks, and the other one, Rav Yehuda citing Rav, from where does he derive that a blemished firstborn is given to a priest? The verse states, and their flesh shall be yours, in the plural, i.e. both an unblemished firstborn and a blemished firstborn. The Gemara asks, and the other ones that say from the school of Rav, how do they respond? The Gemara answers, they would claim that the term and their flesh is written in plural, not because it is referring to blemished animals, but because it is said in reference to those firstborns of all the Israelites. The Mishnah teaches, if a blemish developed within its first year, it's permitted for the owner to maintain the animal for the entire 12 months. If a blemish developed after 12 months have passed, it's permitted for the owner to maintain the animal for only 30 days. The dilemma was raised before the sages. With regard to what case is the Mishnah speaking? Does the Mishnah mean that if a blemish developed within the animal's first year, the owner is permitted to maintain the animal for the entire 12 months, and after the animal's first year for another 30 days? Or perhaps the Mishnah is referring to two different situations, i.e. in a case where the blemish developed within the animal's first year, the owner is permitted to maintain the animal for the entire 12 months, but nothing more. And in a case where it develops a blemish after 1 year, he is permitted to maintain it for only 30 days. The Gemara suggests, come in here as is taught in the Brayta, with regard to a firstborn in its present time. Bekhorot Daf. Nowadays, a firstborn is kept for 2 or 3 years if it has no blemish that can be shown to an expert. Neither the owner nor a priest may do anything to harm the animal, says the Gemara. If the animal develops a blemish, the priest may keep it and is not required to take it to an expert immediately, said the Shach citing Tosfot. Once it has a blemish fit to be shown to an expert, if it developed a blemish within its first year, the owner may maintain it for the entire 12 months. But if it developed a blemish after its first year, you may maintain it for only 30 days. This halacha is in accordance with the opinion cited in the Brayta Rambam Sefer Karbonah Hilchot Bekhorot 111 Shulchan Aruch Yodeh 306-9. When there is no temple and the animal cannot be brought as an offering, until it has developed a blemish that can be shown to an expert, it's permitted for the owner to maintain the animal for 2 or 3 years. But once the animal develops a blemish that can be shown to an expert, if the blemish developed within its first year, it's permitted for the owner to maintain it for the entire 12 months. The Brayta continues, after the animal's first year, the owner does not have permission to maintain it even for 1 day, or even 1 hour. But due to the mitzvah of returning a lost item to the owners, i.e. to give the owner time to find the priest and give him the animal, the sages said, the owner is permitted to maintain the animal for 30 days. So it's a footnote. Mimnei ha-shavas aveda ba'alim amru rashai l'kayomo. According to Rashi, this is referring to a firstborn animal owned by an Israelite, and the concern is that if he slaughters it immediately, the meat might spoil before he finds a priest. Therefore, the owner is permitted, or according to one opinion, is required to leave the animal alive for 30 days until he finds a priest. He may not keep it for longer than 30 days, lest he forget that it has sanctity and make use of it. Consequently, at this stage, he must slaughter and salt it, on the consequence that it will keep until he finds a priest. Others maintain that in this case is referring to an animal that is in the possession of a priest, and the meaning of this clause is that if the priest does not need the meat immediately, he is not obligated to slaughter it right away, but may wait 30 days. According to this opinion, if the animal is in the possession of an Israelite, he waits as long as it takes to find the priest, and that's from Tosfot. I'm just going to play back for 30. The Gemara assumes that in its latter clause, the Brite is still addressing a blemish that developed in the first year. If so, the 30 days evidently apply in such a case. The Gemara asks, but still, let the lemon be raised with regard to that Brite itself. Are the 30 days granted in a case where the animal develops a blemish after its first year? And perhaps these 30 days are granted if it develops a blemish before the end of its first year. In other words, when the Brite states after its first year can be interpreted as referring to an animal whose blemish developed only then, or to one who had a blemish earlier and subsequently reached the end of its first year. The Gemara suggests, come here a Brite. If the animal developed a blemish on the 15th day within its first year, i.e. 15 days before the end of its year, one completes it 15 days after its year. Conclude from this Brite that the owner may maintain the firstborn for an additional 30 days if it develops a blemish during its first year. The Gemara adds that this supports the opinion of Rabbi Elazar, as Rabbi Elazar says, with regard to an animal that developed a blemish toward the end of its year, one gives the owner 30 days from the time the owner developed a blemish. There are those who say that Rabbi Elazar says, from where is it derived with regard to the firstborn animal that developed a blemish during its first year, that one gives the owner 30 days after its year? It derived from a verse, as it is stated, you shall eat it before the Lord your God year by year in the place that the Lord shall choose you in your house in Deuteronomy 15:20. It is derived from here that it may be eaten for 1 year and for another year. Which are the days that are considered to be a significant part of the year? You must say that these are 30 days, which in certain respects are considered a complete year. Shloshim yom chashuvim shana. 30 days are considered a complete year. This principle is applied in a variety of contexts. For example, if one plants a tree that takes root 30 days before the end of the year, on Rosh Hashanah it is considered to already be in its second year, and that's see Rosh Hashanah 10b. This indicates that such a firstborn may be eaten for up to 30 days beyond the first 12 months. According to this version of the discussion, the Gemara raises an objection. It is taught in the Brite that if an animal develops a blemish on the 15th day within its year, if a firstborn developed a blemish at the end of its first year, the owner may maintain the animal for 30 days from the day it developed the blemish, even if he thereby retains it past the animal's first year. How so? If the animal developed a blemish 15 days before the end of the year, the owner may keep the animal until 15 days into the following year. This ruling in according to the Brite. Bekhorot 19 306-8. i.e. 15 days before the end of its year, one completes the 15 days after its year. This indicates that with regard to completing a total of 30 days from the time the animal developed the blemish, yes, the owner may continue to maintain the animal in such a case. But if the blemish developed earlier, the Brite does not give him an extra 30 days beyond the conclusion of the year. And while concludes this refutation of the opinion of Rabbi Elazar is indeed a conclusive refutation. In the case of one who slaughters the firstborn animal and then shows its blemish to an expert to determine whether it is a blemish, and it was established by the expert that it is in fact a blemish that renders its slaughter permitted, Rabbi Yehuda deemed it permitted for a priest to derive benefit from the firstborn. Rabbi Meir says, since it was slaughtered not according to the ruling of an expert, what's the footnote? Since it was slaughtered not according to the ruling of an expert, if one slaughtered a firstborn and afterwards showed the blemish to an expert, the animal is forbidden, and it was not slaughtered based on the ruling of an expert. This applies even if the blemish is evident and did not change as a result of the slaughter, e.g. if it is missing a limb. Well, the carcass must be buried. This ruling is according to the opinion of Rabbi Meir, and the halacha follows his opinion with regard to rabbinic decrees. And so the Rambam says, Bekhorot 3:4 and see the case of Mishnah there, Shulchan Aruch Yodea 310:1. It is prohibited in the case involving one who is not an expert and he examined the firstborn. Misha ein mumche v'ro es habchor. One who is non-expert and examine the firstborn. If one who is non-expert examine the firstborn and is slaughtered based on his ruling, the carcass must be buried, and the one who deemed it permitted must pay for that loss. Bekhorot Daf 310:3. An animal and it was slaughtered on the basis of his ruling. The animal must be buried, and the non-expert must pay compensation to the priest from his property. Rabbi Bahana says the dispute in the Mishnah between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda does not apply in the case of a blemish on the cornea of the eye. What's the footnote? Dukin sheba ayin. Blemish on the cornea, the dukin of the eye. This term, which appears only in the Babylonian Talmud, refers to any small blemish in the eye. See Tosefta Bekhorot 3:4. Rashi explains in his commentary on the Torah and then on the Talmud, see Mishnah 30 on 38a, that it is derived from the word duk in the verse, or crook-backed, or a dwarf, duk, or that his eye overspread, or scabbed, or scurvy, or has his stones crushed. Leviticus 21:20, based on Isaiah 40:22, is understood to refer to a film covering the lens of an eye, and is probably what is referred to nowadays as a cataract. Some translate this term as cornea as some other part of the eye. Rashi, however, citing Isaiah 40:22 and Leviticus 21:20, seems to interpret this term as referring specifically to some ailment in the eye's membrane that impairs vision, possibly cataracts. Others explain that it is the general term for various ailments of the eye. The blemish includes white or cloudy spots on the cornea caused by an infection or a scar. This explains the continuation of the Gemara, which states that these blemishes change after death. Shortly after the death of an animal, the cornea becomes clouded, which render it impossible to identify any blemishes that were present before death. In that situation, everyone agrees that the animal is prohibited because such blemishes in the eye change after the animal's death, which means that there is no way of determining at that late stage whether it has been a permanent blemish or a temporary one. They disagree only with regard to blemishes that are on the animal's body, which do not change after death, as Rabbi Meir holds that we issue a decree prohibiting the animal in the case of blemishes that are on the animal's body due to the case of blemishes in the cornea. And Rabbi Yehuda holds that we do not issue a decree with regard to blemishes that are on the animal's body due to the case of blemishes on the cornea. This is also taught in a Braisa. In the case of one who slaughters a firstborn animal and afterward shows its blemishes to an expert, Rabbi Yehuda says if the blemish on the cornea of the eye is on the cornea of the eye, the animal is prohibited because such blemishes change. But in the case of blemishes on its body, the animal is permitted because these blemishes do not change. Rabbi Meir says that both this blemishes on the eye and that blemish on the body are prohibited because they change. The Gemara inquires, could it enter your mind that blemishes on the body are prohibited because they change? Do blemishes on the body change after the death of the animal? Rather, the blemishes on the body are prohibited due to a decree based on the case of the blemishes on the cornea, which change. Rab Nachman by Yitzchak says that's the end of that Omid. Wish you a very good day and Chag Sameach.